Welcome to video 30. In the last video, we built out the ability to display the number of items that are currently in the cart, but we also need to complete the second portion, which is to display the total cost of the items in the cart. So to that end, I'm going to edit our init.php file, and I'm going to copy this setData line, paste it in place, and we're going to be using, rather than cart total items, we're going to be using cart total cost. And similarly, we're going to be doing cart get total cost, like so. And then we're going to modify our cart object. After get total items, we're going to add public function get total cost, and we'll add in our documentation, and this is going to return the total cost of all items in cart. It's going to accept no parameters, and it's going to return an int. So the first step in this process will be to create a temporary variable. I'm just going to call it num, and it's going to equal 0.00. So we know by default the cost of the items in the cart starts at 0. Then we're going to do if is set, and we're going to make sure that there are actually items in the cart to display. So if is set session cart, and then we need to get the IDs of all the items that are currently in the cart. So IDs equals this get IDs, and then using those IDs we're going to get the product prices. So we're going to access the global products object, and we're going to say prices equals products get prices, and we're going to pass in the IDs that we just retrieved using the getIDs method. And we haven't created get prices yet, we will in a minute, but what this is going to do is this is going to return an array of the prices of all the items that we've passed in, all that have those specific IDs. So the next step will be to loop through, adding the cost of each item and multiplying that times the number of the item in the cart. So we're looping through, we're adding the cost of each item times the number of that item in the cart, and we're adding that to the num variable. And assuming that prices does not equal null for some reason, then we're going to do our for each loop. I'm going to say prices as price. I'm going to say num plus equals and the double val, just to make sure that we're getting a properly formatted number back of price times session cart, and then price ID. So I know that's a little bit confusing to look at. So we're multiplying this price refers to our prices array that we got from our products object. So this multiplies the product price times the total number of that specific item in the cart, and it adds it to the num variable, and then it's going to loop through each of those items that are in the cart, does that, and then it's going to return the num value at the end. So hopefully that should be relatively clear. The next thing we need to do is we need to create this getPrices method. And for that, I'm going to move over to the product object. And let's say let's put it here after the getInCategory method. So public function getPrices. Let's add our documentation. So this is going to return an array, which is going to return an array of price info for specified IDs. So IDs is an array, and it's returning an array. Now within this method, first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a blank data, and this is going to be the array that we return in the end. Next step we're going to do is we're going to create a comma-separated list based on the IDs that are passed in. And you should have seen this before. We used this previously in this file, I believe. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. This is where we used it. We're going to be using the in part of the query again. So back down to the section I was working on. So I'm going to create a temporary items variable, which will be blank to start with, and we'll loop for each. And then we're going to do IDs as ID. Then if it's not the first item in the array, we're going to add a comma. So if items does not equal blank, items dot equals, I'm going to add that comma. And then below that if statement, we're going to do items dot equal ID. So ultimately, this will generate something that looks like this. Say an product ID of 1, 4, and 6. And you'll note that we don't have a comma before the start of this string, and we don't have a comma at the end. And then based on this ID, we're going to get all the product information. So get multiple product info based on list of IDs. So if result equals this database query, we're going to select just the ID and the price from this DB table where the ID is in, and then we pass in that comma list. So items and order by name. And then if the resulting num rows is larger than 0, we're going to loop through, so using a while loop, row equals result fetch array. So this loop is going to happen for each result from our query. We're going to do data, and we're going to add to the data array equals array. And we're going to set ID is row ID. And price is row price. And all the way at the end of this method, down here at the bottom, we're going to return our data. There we go. So let's modify our view, the public header, and rather than using 0, 0 here, I'm going to separate this out, and we're going to put in, I guess I'll do the same thing like I did up here. So rather than items, I'm going to include price. Let's get data, cart total, what did I call it? Cart total cost, false, and then I'm going to put in price. And price like that. So let's take a look, see how we're doing so far. 172. Oh, sorry. This needs to be array and array. So hopefully that'll fix that issue. There we go. So you'll notice we have 3 items in the cart and the price is being properly updated. And we're going to run into the same issue that we had in the last video if we update this. You'll notice how this price doesn't change, but the quantity updated. So we do the exact same thing that we did in the last video. Go to init.php and copy this total cost line. I'm going to open up our cart controller and I'm going to paste it in here within the get empty section. So if the cart has been cleared, we know we're dealing with 0.00. And if the cart's being updated, we know we want to make sure that we get the most recent cost. So if I save this, that's showing an accurate cost right now. Let's modify this to 1, update cart. Notice that's being updated correctly.